Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Los Angeles Rams Insider Podcast. I'm your host and beat writer, Brock Vera. This is our third part in this series with my good friend, Pierce DeLuna from First and Tuna, where we are providing our different perspectives on a variety of topics that are either currently affecting the Rams or could affect the Rams down the road. You can check out all of my work and all the work of Rams on SI at www.si.com/NFL/Rams/on SI. Of course, we drop double-digit pieces of content every single day. So, of course, log in, stay tuned, and you will be able to read one of the stories that I wrote about this topic, which, of course, is the Rams' alleged pursuit of All-Pro wide receiver and Super Bowl champion A.J. Brown. So before we jump into this topic, I'm going to try and get everyone caught up with the reports that we've been hearing so far, and they primarily come from The Athletic's Diana Rossini. So let's jump into what Rossini has to say. So Rossini first tweeted earlier on March 13th that A.J. Brown trade discussions are not dead. Last week, I was told Rams discussed trading for Eagles wide receiver A.J. Brown before dealing for quarterback Trent McDuffie. Dialogue slowed, but Los Angeles continues to monitor the status of the three-time Pro Bowler with interest. We'll see where both parties go from here. And then later on in the day, Rossini would tweet, and I quote, after serious conversations with the Rams and Patriots, the Eagles will not trade A.J. Brown at this time, according to multiple league sources. Both teams remain interested, but no move is imminent. If a trade were to happen, it would likely heat up closer to June 1st. Now, that June 1st date is a very important one because that is when certain cap rules change and hits go into here, and it's a whole mess that nobody really wants to discuss right now. But that's why June 1st is an important date. The other reason why June 1st is an important date for the Rams is this. Les Snead told us earlier this year, all the reporters, that earlier this month, that the Rams have a very simple process for attacking the offseason, and that is to deal with free agency first, then attack the draft, and then to attack player extensions or any player who is currently under contract seeking a longer-term deal. He also said that while the Rams are not exploring a long-term deal with Matthew Stafford, as both parties, but just the general consensus is comfortable with this kind of one-year deal as they go along. A longer-term deal doesn't make sense for either side. Stafford is under contract this year as a result of negotiations that happened last offseason, but after this season, he will be an unrestricted free agent. After this season, Devontae Adams will also be an unrestricted free agent. And, of course, between the ending of April and, of course, this June 1st date, there is a high probability we will see multiple extensions being handed out by the organization to members of the 2023 draft class, most notably, potentially, Puka Nacua and Kobe Turner, and possibly Byron Young as well. If you take a look at all those three, and not even addressing the other members of that draft class, you're looking at extensions that are going to probably average around, at minimum, $300 million in total. I see Nacua getting at least $120 million, Young getting at least $100 million, and Turner getting at least $70 to $80 million, depending on how the market shapes out for him. That's a lot of money to spend. That's a lot of money to consider. So in regard to these reports, the potential of a Brown trade happening, and is there any type of substance to what we're hearing? Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Pierce DeLuna. Pierce, thank you for coming back. What are your thoughts?
I think where there's always smoke, there's fire. The Rams made it pretty evident, like you said. We don't want to leave gaps. We don't want to be desperate when it comes to the draft, because especially for a team that's primed for the Super Bowl. They were supposed to win it last year. Now you're adding even more firepower. You're trying to create your own version of a little dream team at every position. So now, why would you ask a rookie to hold it down at one of the most important positions, like your Super Bowl hopes, just on that, right? So they're attacking it very, very aggressively, and that counts the same for the wide receiver 2/3 position. I think it's true that the Eagles are shopping A.J. Brown, not because he's a problem, not because he's unproductive and not a wide receiver one. I just think the relationship is probably more fractured than people let on both sides between him and Sirianni. I'm in the camp that I'm more likely to side with AJ Brown. I haven't met a wide receiver one in my life that wasn't a little bit, got some ego and does some kooky stuff. But that's what you want from a wide receiver one. And I think the Rams would be dumb to not look at him if he's on the table. How interested they are and when that decision does happen, whether it's before or after the draft, obviously that remains to be seen. But I really do think that they're not done before the draft, whether that is an AJ Brown, whether it's like another key piece, like they've added the special teams in this last week as well. They're in moving with serious intention. And I think, like we talked about before, they are putting their 2023 class on notice of hey, it's put up or shut up. Even if we prioritize you and your deal's not done yet, and we'll get it done in season, we got to see some certain things. Otherwise, that Byron Young $100 million number might come down to 90 or 80, and then it's like, okay, if you don't want to go lower, you're more than welcome to try the free agent market. So I think a lot of moving parts, a lot of things are true at once, and if the Rams do pull a trigger on someone like AJ Brown, man, it's going to be a party at SoFi on offense every single week. I'll say that.
Do you know what you call a wide receiver one who does not demand the ball and is fairly passive in their behavior?
A wide receiver two?
Bingo. And that's exactly what AJ Brown is not. I'm sorry. It's the facts. Do I want a wide receiver that doesn't demand the football on any football team? No. Why? Because that person doesn't want it enough, right? A wide receiver one needs to genuinely believe any ball that is airborne not only is theirs, but is bequeathed to them, and anyone that's in the way can go get it, right? That's exactly the type of player AJ Brown is. And when you look at his career, and when you look at his track record, and when you look at the track record of success teams have had who have had him, and then what happens after they lose him, it's very evident. Why the Eagles would want to get rid of AJ Brown? I'm sure. Well, obviously there's a lot of reasons, but none of them make any sense to me. I mean, first of all, I don't care if I hate the guy's guts. If I'm a head coach, I'm telling him, "Hey, hate me tomorrow. Let's go win this today." Right? Yep. Like, who cares? And the Eagles, since trading for AJ Brown, have made 2 Super Bowls, had 2 incredible displays of offensive productivity in those 2 Super Bowls, have made the playoffs in 4 straight years, and then this past season they became the first team like this century to win the NFC East in back-to-back seasons.
Yep.
There is a clear underutilization of Brown in terms of route patterns and things of that nature. I think that comes from 2 different areas. One is Jalen Hurts' ability as a passer. I think Jalen Hurts is a great all-around quarterback, but a big portion of that is his ability to make plays with his feet. And then the other portion of this is when you look at their offensive coordinators over the past, Brown's tenure, we're talking about 4 different play callers. What Shane Steichen, I can't remember the gentleman after him, and then after that was Kellen Moore and Kevin Patullo this year.
Patullo, Moore, Brian Johnson, Shane Steichen.
I should have known that. That was
4 and 5 years. 4 and 5 years.
I knew the last name Johnson, but I was like, is it Greg? That doesn't seem right. And then you look at this upcoming season, it's going to be, of course, former Rams backup quarterback Sean Mannion. That's going to be the OC for them. The lack of consistency for him, I'm sure, is just frustrating. Not only is your production wavering, your ability to maintain health and everything is wavering because you're constantly getting put in bad spots due to bad plays or bad balls. And when you look at the possibility of joining the McVay offense, there's so much that he can do, and he serves as an immediate successor to A.J. Brown. But that's not why I want to have this video. I'm not even really wanting to discuss the validity of those conversations because I do believe that the Rams checked in on A.J. Brown. I'm more concerned of what does this signal. And to me, this signals that not only is this F them picks 2.0, this is F them picks 2.0 ultra, because I'm starting, again, this is not based on anything except my own personal observations, but I'm genuinely believing that when Matthew Stafford says, I'm out, Sean McVay is going to be like, okay, hold the car because I'm coming with you, right? Like, this is going to be straight up Sean McVay. And if a Super Bowl is involved, this is right off into the sunset. We had a bomb run Now I'm going to go make $300 million on the media circuit or whatever he does after. Do you think that I'm over exaggerating, or do you think that if the Rams are genuinely going after AJ Brown, this is setting up a scenario where they're investing everything into right now because there really is no tomorrow for them?
Whoo, man, you got two paths here, two choices in life. Do you want to be a true all buy in, and that takes a lot of trust from Stan Kroenke. Then being like, yeah, there's got to be some conversations on like, hey man, you're spending a lot of money for the next year or two without a lot of thought, maybe to the 3, 4, 5 years from now. What's going on, Sean? But yeah, no, if you're gonna do that, if that's the plan, and he wants to leave when Stafford does, yeah, why would you not just go crazy? F them picks. Now, the more level-headed, if I'm going to sit here and think Sean McVay is going to be here until the wheels fall off because he loves football, and that hopefully that remains true for all Rams fans. A lot of Rams fans will hope he gets a lifetime contract. That's how much they enjoy him as a coach. I would like to think it's more, if they do go after AJ Brown, it's a signal to give them breathing room for Puka Nacua. How long can Puka Nacua be this elite? Is this the mountaintop? Can he break 2K? Can he repeat what he did this last year? It's hard. Like, he was the life force of that offense. When you needed a big play, he got it done. But he plays so physical. Like, that's a 6 to 8 year window for most guys. Does that get limited with how physical he is? AJ Brown also becomes the immediate successor to Devontae Adams, like we talked about. And I hate the fact I keep thinking about this and bringing it up, but if it's on my mind, I'm gonna talk about it either with you or like put it out in the air. What's going to happen with Devontae? His hamstring acted up against Detroit last year, kept him out a few weeks, and then they brought him back in the playoffs. I don't know if I was just reading into it. It kind of looked like Devontae wasn't 100%. Like, he came back healthy enough, but he didn't seem to have that same juice, especially after the catch. Like, I every time he caught the ball, I was like, okay, he's going to get 5 or maybe 10, and then he's going to go down. Is he going to be his full self, or is he going to be limited? So in that case, you don't even have a wide receiver 2. Like, you have a 2.5, a 3. If he can't go the full 17, you protect yourself by having an AJ Brown. So that way Devontae just kind of becomes your red zone specialist and keep him on ice the entire year until postseason. It's a aggressive way to address a potential injury need, but yeah, you introduce something I didn't even think about. Like, dang, what if Sean does bring back that? Hey, let me go test that media circuit. I do hope his past conversations reignited his fire for coaching, and he wants to be here long term. But that's serious, man. The Rams have a lot of questions to answer. If you do get it all done this year, what does the future look like post Stafford? That's a tough hill to climb. That's another huge mountain right after you climb the Super Bowl mountaintop, I will say.
Yeah, and I do want to go back to the whole McVay point thing, and there's a reason why. McVay obviously loves football. His whole family's in football. His granddad helped build the 49ers dynasty back in the 80s and the 90s. So
Yeah.
it's a sport that runs through his veins. But when you hear him talk about the sport and passionately, it always goes back to his family. Lessons that he learned from his granddad. And then he just mentions how he says that his dad is one of the biggest leaders that he knows. And he takes a lot from him. That's always family, family, family. McVay did have a addition to his family this previous season, another child. And at some point, when you start talking about the hours you have to put in for coaching, you do wonder how much are you sacrificing, especially as your children get older and they're starting to get involved in different things, and you start to miss out on those things, especially for a coach like McVay, who has constantly preached publicly to the media that he needs to get his 7 to 8 hours of sleep because he used to go back in the day without getting those amounts, and it made him absolutely rubbish at his profession. Well, his version of rubbish and our version of rubbish is very different. But, you have to factor all these things. Even though it's not strictly football related, you do wonder if he's seeing this as a one-time window where they can go out there and execute now, because they're never going to get this again. And he's going to have to start making tougher decisions that go beyond the game, which makes an addition like A.J. Brown a lot more lustful. May I say that as the word to use? Much more attractive. you look at Brown's contract, which at this year, like if the Rams were to just add him straight up and not do anything with his money, the Rams would be like 3-4 million over the cap, and that's before they would be able to sign their rookie class.
Yeah.
And then you start looking down the road. He's in the contract for another 3-4 years. Obviously, how his guaranteed money works out will be a big determination of how the Rams are able to move money around. And they're able to do so pretty easily with an owner like Stan Kroenke, who has assets and who's able to get the liquid cash needed to go into an escrow account to be able to pay out signing bonuses that allow contract restructures. And that's why
Yeah.
the Rams have been able to be creative financially in terms of the cap and how, accounting works for the organization. But I don't care how many times you move numbers. Moving 20 to 25 million a year is not an easy thing to do, especially when Devontae Adams' cap hit this year is about 28 million because they went with a backloaded deal on his 2-year initial contract. Again, none of this matters if it's somebody else's problem, right? If they, it's around there. And then you also have to wonder, obviously, if they execute this move and if this is the route that they want to go on, is there going to be a clear succession plan for a head coach that possibly involves a name like Chris Shula, even not taking a head coaching opportunity somewhere else to become the next Rams head coach? For Shula, it would make a lot of sense. His family is here. He's been a member of this organization. This is what, his 10th year, straight year as a member of this organization, won 2 NFC championships, won a Super Bowl. Obviously, and then you start looking back, right? I always go back to follow the pattern. John McVay, Sean's grandfather, and Bill Walsh won a shit ton together, if I may say so bluntly. Bill Walsh retires in, I think, 89 after they win the Super Bowl. Who do they hire after? Well, they hire Walsh's defensive coordinator, George Seifert, and Seifert goes on to win 2 more Super Bowls with the organization. Is this a possibility where we're seeing this unfold right now? And I posed this in an article, which again, everyone can catch at www.si.com/NFL/Browns/on-SI, which was, did McVay tip his hand for his next career intention? Yeah, the media gig is one thing, but his grandfather is a legendary general manager. Les Snead is, I think, in the middle of his 50s, and yes, they both got extended, but you do wonder at some point, is Snead going to take on that Ozzie Newsome, like, I'm like the top dog of this organization, like I'm like executive president or whatever the title is, and McVay becomes general manager, and then allowing him to free up the time he needs while staying close to football to kind of manage this situation in terms of the numbers while allowing somebody else to take the coaching load. And if that's a possible idea going on in their minds, would that allow them to execute a trade of this nature? I know I went through a lot, but what are your thoughts on everything I just said?
No, like even though there was a lot of words, everything was on point and everything made sense. Give me a lot to think about, though. I think before I ended this conversation, I was like 100% like, what are you talking about? Like, of course he's gonna coach until he's absolutely tired of it. Like he's gonna draft his own son one day. But that's a good point. When you're, not barely 40, if that, you get a growing family, you have a lot of aspirations. You think of, he's close to Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald called it quits before he fell off, the ability cliff, if I could say that. Man, you also forgot the part of Cliff Kingsbury here. Very, very different, unique situation where you have an OC, you have your DC. Hell, you've got other guys in senior positions that are like co-head coaches. You're bringing Kingsbury, who is not, correct me if I'm wrong, he's not part of the traditional Shanahan tree. He has his own system, a little bit more RPO based. He's worked with Kyler Murray, Jaden McDaniels, definitely a little bit different quarterbacks than what Sean has had here in LA. You got to think, like, is there a succession plan where they're like trying guys out? Is Sean trying to hit the refresh button on his own energy? Is he trying to take a load off his plate so he can keep going? Or is he like, hey, work with Chris, work with these guys? Like, what are we missing for a handoff? Or is Cliff taking his best shot as the next head coach? These are all super valid questions. I think the one factor that I think adds validity to everything you're saying about, the everyone riding off into the sunset with Stafford thing is how different is the Rams organization from top to bottom in everything that happens. The Todd Gurley thing, the Aaron Donald thing, it would be on brand for a lot of mix-ups after a Super Bowl win for Les to take a bigger role. Hell, what if Sean wants to go in the general management and you got a succession plan, like you said? I wouldn't be surprised by it. It would be huge. But if there's one organization that has built a lot of trust within their core group, like their main guys, that Tony is included in that, it would be the Rams. And I think they wouldn't make these changes if they could not feel like they could win football games the year after. If there's anything Stan loves more than money, it is the ability to put winners on the field. We see it with the Denver Nuggets as well right now. I think like there's a lot of validity to what you're saying. As much as I hate to say that, it would be like weird but cool to see a big shakeup like that and how these guys can further advance not just the Rams but football. Can you imagine Sean McVay as a general manager? All the weird wizardry stuff he's done on offense, what he would do front office wise and team culture building. You give me a lot to think about, man. You think about that.
Yeah, that's what these podcasts are built for, right? And just to wrap up this episode, several top things I want to address based on what you said and this entire conversation in general, how AJ Brown can be the key to kind of figuring out what the Rams' long-term intentions are going to be is this. I'm not talking about this is a move that the Rams are going to execute like next year. Like I'm not saying McVay's going to retire like next season or anything like that. I'm more looking at this at like a 5-10 year timeline. Obviously, Stafford's not going to be playing for 5-10 years, but I do think that there's a strong possibility. Of course, it depends on how he feels after this season, what the Rams accomplish this season. I think there's a strong possibility he does it again in 2027 before possibly retiring before 2028. And the reason why I want to look at this at a 5-year window is because of this. And it all kind of comes back to Puka Nacua, as we mentioned earlier. Nacua's physical style of play will definitely have wear and tear. But Nacua already went on record saying that he wants to retire by the time he's 30. This May, he turns 25, to just put that into perspective. So you're looking at 5, possibly 6 more seasons with him. More than enough time for him to accomplish everything he wants to accomplish, more than enough time for him to solidify a Hall of Fame candidacy, but that's kind of window we're looking at. And then we start looking at, obviously, 5 years down the line. Yeah, McVay's young, but in 5 years, he's going to be 45. Does he really want to be coaching into his late 40s and into his 50s? Is that something that really drives him to keep going? When it comes to Les Snead, you wonder, well, what position could he possibly want who's already Rams general manager? Well, that's if you're only looking at the Rams. I'm not looking at just that. I'm looking at Stan Kroenke's entire sports empire, which, of course, as you mentioned, Denver Nuggets, the Colorado Avalanche, Arsenal Football Club. Maybe Snead wants a position at that level. And maybe there might be an interest in that spot that could open up a possibility, especially for a guy like Snead, who is going to be a Hall of Fame general manager, who already has a Super Bowl ring, who could go and win a second one or possibly more down the line. And as I mentioned, he's already in his mid-50s. So in a 5-year timeline, we're talking about a man who's entering his 60s who might be looking for that next adventure that he wants to go after. And then when you start looking at the Rams coaching staff, Cliff Kingsbury, as mentioned, Chris Shula that I mentioned, Nate Schulhouse, another coach that should be mentioned because, hey, Shula might go out and get a head coaching job next season. Cliff Kingsbury might go out and get another head coaching job or an offensive coordinator job this next season. But when you start looking at Schulhouse, who just became a first-year offensive coordinator this year, and the fact that he was already getting head coaching interviews this offseason, you do have to wonder, are the Rams willing to risk losing a coach of that nature who rejected an Iowa State head coach in the waiting position to join the Rams? People don't talk about that enough. Had Schulhouse stayed at Iowa State, he would be their head coach right now as Matt Campbell left for Penn State. So you do wonder, considering he made that risk, took that jump, is there a little bit of a loyalty? Be like, hey, there's a reason why we wanted you here, and we want you here for the long term. So a lot of these factors kind of come in, but what the Rams do with A.J. Brown and when they do it is going to be a dramatic indicator of what their intentions will be. However, as Rossini mentioned, she doesn't expect anything until June 1st. And I don't expect the Rams to do anything until the middle of the season. When it comes to A.J. Brown himself, I think that the only way the Rams are able to go get him is if they execute something in the middle of the season where perhaps his price drops a little bit because I do not see this team willing to risk the value of the 13th overall pick for a player, even as great as Brown, who costs as much as he does after they just traded away the 29th pick for a player that they extended at 30 plus million a season, a rate that Nakua will eclipse when he gets his extension. A lot to think about. But before we go, any final thoughts on what I said, this podcast, or anything in general?
I will reiterate what Jared Verse and Kobe Turner have said about what they feel they lost out on with their performance in the NFC Championship game. You might only have one more season of Matthew Stafford. I think that's the crux of it all, and rightly so. Matthew Stafford, I'm on record saying he is a generational quarterback. He's a Hall of Famer, first ballot. Damn happy he got an MVP. You may have, in 12 months from now, Matthew Stafford may not ever wear a jersey again. You cannot go out with this guy playing as an MVP level. You can't go out without a ring. All the hopes and dreams of all this stuff of futures and everything, I think it rides on this year. So you better take your best shot. You better not miss. Do not waste this Hall of Famer's time. That's all I got to say on that.
Fair enough. And last thing that I have to add based on that is that after the Rams lost in Seattle, I had a conversation with the Athletics' Nate Atkins, a good friend of mine. Obviously, we're on the beat together. And he said something that I didn't think about in that moment, but I've been thinking about ever since. In order for the Rams to get back to the point that they were at last season, you would have, at the very minimum, you would need Matthew Stafford, who came into the season with a noted back issue that prevented him from participating throughout training camp and in preseason, to go out and play at least 19 games just to get back to the NFC Championship. That's not including playing 17. That's always 16 in the regular season. So if he has to play all 17, that's now 20, and then a Super Bowl being 21. You know, it's a great way to ensure his health, having a read like A.J. Brown on the field, play like A.J. Brown on the field, so he can get the ball out to pretty quickly. But, of course, we'll have to see what the Rams do now and in the future. This has been Mr. Pierce First and Tuna. Check out his work. Again, Brock Biera for Los Angeles Rams on SI. Check out my work as well. We'll catch y'all next time. Take care.